Okay, well, I thought it was time to review my own bike, I guess. Put enough miles on it, so so far all I've been doing is family members' new bikes. But what I'm on today is a 2009 Yamaha FZ6. It's not the FZ6R. This is the full-powered 98 horsepower puppy. Full-size rear wheel, the full suspension, everything. This is one of my favorite little back roads up here. I'm just going to run through some of the parts that I like, some things that I've learned to dislike. I've got, let's see, what's the count at? 56,500 kilometers on it. So quite a bit. And I've put all but the first 11 on. I do commuting, I do touring, I do sport riding, kind of like I'm out on today. But that's what I love about the bike, is it's so versatile and can do so many different styles of riding. I can load it up with gear, I can load it with a backpack and just tour back and forth to work, or I can go out and enjoy some twisty roads and have a little fun with it. Yeah, so it's a 98 horsepower R6 engine. Now it's a detuned R6 engine. I think it's got a different cam, different fueling, all sorts of things like that. So this one redlines at 14,000 on the clock. I think it actually hits 13,500 when the rev limiter kicks in. Plenty fast enough for me. I mean, it's only lacking like 17 horsepower from the R6, I think. The R6S at least. Similar build. Other than that, there's quite a few differences though. It's a cast aluminum frame. A lot of people have been, at least that I've read about and seen, have had problems with it cracking in some of the severe spots. Brakes are quite good in my opinion. They were good stock. I've upgraded with some stainless lines and with sintered brake pads, so non-organic, which organic comes stock. Braking power, really, I've never really gotten beyond the point at which I can't brake anymore. I try to ride within reason, but I could do a stoppie easily if wanted. So I've already gone through. This is the third set of tires on this bike, and I'm due for a fourth set soon. I'm running the Michelin Pilot Road 3s, just because the amount of touring, the amount of commuting, the number of kilometers I put on, I need a tire that's got some longevity to it, so I'm not switching out twice a season or so. I tend to put on around 20,000 kilometers a year, give or take. Layout of the bike, so there's zero ABS, zero traction control. It is purely me, and I guess the computer controls the fueling, but other than that, it's all me, which I kind of like. I like and I dislike it. I like it because it's taught me to be a good rider. I dislike it because in the rain and stuff, I'd love to have ABS. I've skidded the rear wheel a few times, not a lot of fun. I've had to put a few additions to the bike. I've got these new heavier weighted handlebar ends. Being an inline 4, it's very buzzy and high RPM, and I'll talk about the power profile in a minute, but with all the buzziness, they can get really taxing on your hands, arms, even your butt over long distances. So I've got these as an upgrade. I've got a seat pad, but no upgraded seat. And then just some accessory lights and things like that I can do when I look at a walk around. Power delivery, I find from 0 to, so let's say, 5,500, 6,000 RPM. I'm quite happy with that in-town riding style. That's all perfectly fine for me. Between 6,000 and 8,000, I find quite a flat spot in the power. And then from 8,000, really at 8 to 10, it really picks up and it really starts to get up and go, and that's where it'll start to power wheel a little, depending on how you have your fueling set up. So in town, I find it quite manageable. It's got a very small or short friction point on the clutch. Now that's kind of annoying sometimes, annoying for new people. I kind of like it because it allows me to snap through gears really quickly. But yeah, the gearbox for in-town riding kind of sucks. It's very clunky. You'll hear a specific clunk when you put it into first, and then first through to third almost, it's similar clunks depending to what level you're on the power. But I get used to it just like anybody else would. But it's not a snick like you'd get with other bikes. It's a definite clunk, and that's true across the board for all these. On the forums, everybody, whenever they get this bike, say, oh, is there something wrong with my gearbox? It's super clunky putting it in and out of first and things like that. No, it's just the nature of the beast. But I quite like it. It's fared me really well. It suits my style of riding quite well, I find. There's a little more upright seating. I've got handlebar risers on it that the previous owner put on, and that just makes it quite a bit more comfortable for me, especially when I'm putting in 750 kilometer days, things like that. It's nice to have for sure. I quite like Yamaha's quality. I mean, I like having the digital tack. I've complained about that on different bikes. I'm impartial when it comes to a digital speedometer. I like it, it's fine. Doesn't bother me. Fueling, I find I get 300 kilometers when I'm riding reasonably until I'm on the reserve tank. And then from there I've got between 60 and 80 depending on how I'm riding again until empty. And that's, it's like a 19.4 liter tank, so 20 liters for all intents and purposes. So I'm quite happy with the mileage, and it's really stayed the same the entire time I've owned the bike. I've gotten a little more aggressive in my riding style, but the mileage has stayed pretty close to the same, all points considered. So great bike for touring. When I've got the seat pad on, I can go all day as long as I straighten out my wrist a few times. You know, I've done 800 kilometers in a day on this, and I could have gone further if I wanted to. And I can pack all of my gear on it. I can get all of my camping gear and all the clothes that I want. See what that was up to. That was a pretty good little run. So if you caught it, the front end pops up when I shift from first to second when I'm heavy on the power, and it's quite happy to do that. So it's a chain drive, and I've had some problems with my chain, but that was just a crappy chain I had bought. And some crappy maintenance cycling, but I really try to take care of this bike. I think I'm going to own it until it's dead, until it runs no more. But there's been plenty of these bikes credited with going over 100,000 miles. Well, not plenty, I mean, there's a few that I've seen over 100,000 miles. So I'm sure it's got plenty of life left in it as long as I treat it nicely and respect it for sure. Steering, I find it's not bad. The front end gets quite wobbly. I shouldn't be saying this. The front end gets pretty wobbly over, say, 210 kilometers per hour, not miles, on a closed track, of course. But front end gets pretty wobbly around there. Whatever. I mean, it's happy. It sits comfortably planted up until that point, at least. So, and there's no reason to be up there for any longer than a quick second here and there. As I speed my way along here. I do wish that I had more functions out of my gauge cluster. All I've got is time, 2 trip counters, and then my odometer. Really, I mean, it'd tell me the oil temperature and my coolant temperature, and that's it. I mean, I would love a gear indicator. I guess it tells me my fuel level, but I'd love a gear indicator and like fuel consumption, some things like that. But I guess it's pretty bare bones in terms of its electric little fun little things. Very flickable bike. I've always felt comfortable. I've never scraped a peg or gotten my knee down. I don't know how close I've gotten either, but I tend to lean around a little more, but I find it's perfectly happy, and these are squared off tires. It's perfectly happy in these corners. Really, it's never given me any issues whatsoever. And whether that's riding experience or not, I mean, I'm very happy carving on it and things like that. The front suspension, that's where this bike starts to have a downfall. Front suspension is very undersprung, and I don't know if you could catch it when I did my little speed test, but it's very, very, there's a lot of fork dive when you get heavy on the brakes. So that's something to keep in mind. A lot of people transition to an R6 shock, or they at least put in new springs and emulators or something. These are supposed to be emulator style, but really they don't do much for me, I find. So a little unsettling in corners with bumps and stuff. I'm pretty used to it, but when I ride a bike like my dad's with Öhlins suspensions stock, I really notice a difference in kind of how planted it feels. This is the stock windshield. I've got two others. I find I like this one the most. It's a little quieter than the others, and I've just gotten kind of used to it. Not a huge deal for me. I'm just used to it. It sends some buffeting into my head, but I ride with earplugs in for the most part, so it's not that exhausting as you might think. I definitely find that after I'm in second gear, if I'm on the power, I can 100% shift up with no clutch. I have no issues with that. It's pretty smooth. I don't downshift without the clutch. Maintenance-wise, pretty easy bike to take care of. I change the oil between every 5,000 and 8,000 kilometers. A little more than I should sometimes, but it always comes out pretty much the same color, and it's never had any issues. I know it's time to change the oil when it starts feeling a little bit more buzzy. I just did it recently, 300 or 400 kilometers ago, so it's not bad. You can put in full days on this bike in the twisties, have a lot of fun, and then ride back to your campsite with where you left all your gear or something like that. I don't know what I'm talking about. Nor do I know the speed limit here. So I'll probably shut up. I'll probably do a little walk around when I get a chance here. Okay, well this is my FZ6. Just in a random parking lot here. I really like the way it looks. It's actually quite dirty. I cleaned it I spent like 6 hours washing it the other day, and I got caught in the rain the other day, so it really kind of ruined it. But I really like the mix of the black engine, black wheels, and then the dark blue. I'm quite a fan of. So right now it's set up, I don't have any of my luggage on it or anything. I think this bike looks better naked than it does with the half fairing here. It's got kind of an awkward look to it from some angles. I still like it, but I think when I'm done using it as a touring bike, I might take the whole front end off and just go strictly a naked bike with a small headlight and that sort of thing, no windshield. Turn the ignition on. So I've added a couple lights to it, just at the front end. Makes it a little more visible. I had a pretty close call the other day with a van, and apparently these fork lights are supposed to kind of increase the visibility of you overall. See down here I've got my stainless steel brake lines. Really like those. My lever, super firm now. Tons of brake power out of it. I have no issues there. I've got my HVMP bar ends. I don't know how much they weigh, but they're solid aluminum, and they take a lot of the vibration out of the bars, which can be kind of buzzy. Other little modifications, I've got handlebar risers there. Those are all right. It's just an up, not an up and back, but they sure make it a little bit more comfortable when I'm on longer rides, things like that. Quite dirty right now, actually. Out back, I like the undertail exhaust. I've yet to upgrade to actually any form of performance exhaust. These sound okay. They're quiet enough when you're just riding around. They could be a little louder for, I don't know, sportier riding, but they do all right. A fender eliminator. I've also got these hyperlites So these modulate when I press the brake, and they're quite powerful. They're quite bright and shocking, so they're quite nice for visibility. I've got a rack also for my top box, what I use when I'm camping. Frame sliders. Haven't put it down. Some people have, if they drop the bike, they've found that the frame slider actually cracks the frame right there, and there's quite a few cracked frames from this exact area. Apparently there's no webbing in behind it. So that's something to be concerned about, but I really have them for parking lot drops, which I have actually never done to this bike, but knock on wood, I never will. But that's what they're there for, protect my fairing, protect my tank if I do end up dropping at low speed, or if somebody else does, if they're borrowing it, something like that. So I find it pretty sporty. I quite like the looks of it. There's things other people change, you know, they paint their rear sets, they put on adjustable rear sets, things like that. Got a voltage meter here, lets me know where my battery is at, depending how many things I'm charging or running, GPS, phone, things like that, what my battery's doing. For tires, I'm running the Michelin Pilot Road 3s, which I'm quite a big fan of. I've gotten pretty good mileage, about 22,000 kilometers out of them now, I think. That's the front, quite a bit of meat left there still. My rear, can't quite say the same about. That's really all I've got left on the rear. But luckily there's a completely brand new set waiting in my apartment right now. So those will be going on shortly, depending on if I have to go on a little longer trip or whatnot. I might see if I can get just a little bit more out of these, maybe. So anyway, that's my FZ6. I'm sure there's a ton of these online that people have done videos on, but I figured I'd add to my channel a little bit. If you guys have any questions, just throw them up in the comments. Anybody thinking about buying one? They're a little getting harder and harder to find as they're getting older. This was the last year they made it, 2009. But they're still fetching a fairly good dollar online from what I've seen. So maybe there's a place for mine if I do decide to sell it. But I don't see that happening anytime soon.